Hello everyone, my name is Nick and today I'm going to show you guys all of my Peperomia. So amongst many other groups of plants, I absolutely love to collect the genus Peperomia, mainly because it's such a diverse genus of houseplants. There are over 1,500 species in the genus Peperomia, and that is mind-blowing. So I absolutely love to collect them, and around 20 or so are pretty readily available in your local garden center. But beyond that, there are some pretty wild ones, so it's really fun to research and find some new ones out there, and there's always a new one going on my wish list. So I have been collecting Peperomia for roughly 2.5 years. The obsession started when I walked into a local plant shop and I found a parallel Peperomia, or a Peperomia tetragona, and I loved it and I brought it home, and when I did a little bit of research on it, I found out how closely related it was to my Peperomia obtusifolia, which is another rather common Peperomia. And then very soon after that, I got a Peperomia hope and a Peperomia orba, and I was just like, these plants are so different looking, yet they're so closely related. And I did a little bit more research on the topic and I discovered, what's up with Peperomia and how fascinating they are. So ever since I've been collecting them, I have around 52 varieties of Peperomias last time I counted, and that is spread amongst roughly 40 to 45 species, I would say. So I have a lot to share with you guys, and we're gonna start over here on my bar cart, or my plant cart, because there's no alcohol on it anymore. So right over here, I have this Peperomia MERIDIANA, which is nothing spectacular in terms of foliage, but I really enjoy its red stems and the small green foliage. And one thing I really enjoy about Peperomias is how small they are. So I can have 50 plus Peperomias and it's not going to take up a tremendous amount of room. So that is something I really appreciate. And then amongst this one, I also have this Peperomia scandens over here, which, as the name suggests, is a very scandent grower. So it grows very similarly to your standard heartleaf philodendron, and I think it almost looks pretty much identical. And if I didn't know any better, I would probably have thought this was a heartleaf philodendron if I walked right by it in a garden center. I think that's all the Peperomias I have over here, so we're going to move over to my plant corner, which actually throughout this whole entire plant corner, I only have one Peperomia, and it's in this terrarium right here. So tucked inside this terrarium, if I pull back these leaves, there is this Peperomia metallica, and it's the wider form of metallica, which I think sometimes I see as the repii form, but if I'm not mistaken, Peperomia repii is a misnomer for this type of Peperomia metallica here. I don't typically grow Peperomias in terrariums. I'm a little nervous that they'll rot, but this terrarium right here I have with very well draining soil, and I have it with a PILEA folia and a philodendron red super dwarf, so these aren't very heavy drinkers, so I'm not worried about rotting out this Peperomia. So that's it for this corner. We're gonna move over to this window over here. Woo! Alright, I have a bunch of Peperomias to share with you guys in this window. So this is a western exposed window, and there is a tree right outside, so it's kind of blocking some of that extra light late in the day. So right here is a very large Peperomia tetragona. This is what they also call the parallel Peperomia or stilt Peperomia, and I absolutely love this one. This one is very large. I bought it large, so I did not grow it out, unfortunately. And this one right next to it is a Peperomia VERSCHAFFELTII, which they also refer to as a mini watermelon Peperomia, which you will see the regular watermelon Peperomia later on. And then up here, this beautiful cascading red plant is a Peperomia ruby cascade, which is a very, very fast grower and a very drought-tolerant Peperomia. It definitely appreciates a little bit more light than some of these other Peperomias, but I've noticed it to be very good as long as I'm not overwatering it. And then we gotta work our way up. So I have quite a few Peperomias actually up here in this window hanging. So right here, this long one is a Peperomia boii. It looks very, very similar to Peperomia hope, but from what I have found out, Peperomia boii is a species, while Peperomia hope is like a cultivated, patented plant. So it is made by somebody and it's not supposed to be replicated, although they still replicate it. And then down here is a Peperomia quadrangularis, which is a rather nice one. It's one of my favorites. I really love the way that the leaves are shaped, and look, it looks very similar to the Peperomia tetragona, but it's a little bit more muted and round, so I don't know why, but I just love the way this plant looks. And then this little one right here is a Peperomia KIMNACHII. So this one is a rather new one to me. I haven't had it very long, but when I received it, it was just one small cutting in a pot, and now it has 2 vines coming off of it, so I'm very excited to see how this one grows. Back here, I'll actually pull this one out for you guys to see. This is a Peperomia ALBOVITTATA RANA VERDE that I actually have grown from a leaf cutting. So this one has grown quite a bit. It's absolutely adorable. Really love the way this one looks, and it kind of inspires me to do more leaf cuttings because this came from one leaf and there are like 10 plants in this pot, and that is absolutely crazy. So I am loving that. And then one more that I will pull out for you guys because it's kind of hidden back here. It's rather large. It is this Peperomia Red Ecuador is how I purchased this as. So it looks kind of similar to like maybe a Peperomia rubella meets a Peperomia verticillata, so maybe that's what it is, but knowing Peperomias, they are so diverse, so I really don't know what this one is. I have been giving it maybe a little bit too much light from the yellowing that I've seen on the bottom of the plant, but this plant overall has grown tremendously, and I would consider it to be very healthy and growing really well, and it's even putting off some babies for me. So I'm really loving this Peperomia. This is one I haven't really seen that often, so I'm not sure if it's a rare one or not, but I don't even know if that's the correct name for it. So another window over here we're going to move into. Over here is a rather lush corner in my home that is once again a west-facing window that has a little bit of that tree outside that is blocking some of that light, but as you can kind of see because the light's kind of blowing it out, but there are some larger plants amongst the back of my window kind of blocking the sunlight for the plants I have in the front level here. So actually over here a little bit out of the way I have this Peperomia Scandens Variegata, which is just the variegated version of that Peperomia Scandens that I showed you guys that I had on my bar cart. And hiding just below it I actually have a Peperomia Caperata, which I'm not too sure on the cultivar of this. I think it was sold to me as Gray Luna, so that could be it. But if we work our way over, I have a Peperomia Elongata, which is a very interesting Peperomia I don't see very often. Apparently there are some medicinal qualities about this plant, so I think that is very interesting. Along with another type of Peperomia Scandens I have kind of back here that is actually some cuttings that my friend gave me because she found that her plant kind of sported a little bit into a little bit of a different type of variegation, so we don't really, have a name for this plant. It's kind of just a little experiment, so who knows, but something I'm just kind of keeping track of. And then right next to that I have a Peperomia glabella, is how it was sold to me as. It could be something else, but... And down here, kind of trailing in front in my group partner pot, I have this Peperomia PERESKIIFOLIA, which looks very similar in a sense to Peperomia TETRAGONA, but it is also very different. This is one I kind of was not giving it enough light, and I recently moved it back to this window, and I have 3 or 4 new shoots coming out from the base of the pot, so I'm very excited to see what happens with that. Peperomias actually tend to grow a little bit more in the wintertime than they do in the summertime, which is a little bit contrary to what we are used to. So they're technically known as summer dormant plants and winter growers. So I'm hoping once another month or 2 goes by, I'll see some expedited growth on these plants. And actually not a peperomia, but one that's often mistaken for a peperomia is this PILEA peperomioides that I have right here. So it actually gets the name because in Latin, the suffix oides in peperomioides means it looks like. So it's saying it looks like a peperomia, which is actually kind of funny because it looks a lot like the peperomia that I have up here, which is Peperomia polybatria, which they also call the teardrop peperomia, which gets rather large leaves and is probably a peperomia that would appreciate a little bit more sunlight in my experience. And growing inside the pot with the Peperomia polybatria, I have some Peperomia prostrata, which they also call turtle vine, or string of turtles. So a really finicky peperomia, I will say, but I have found some really good luck growing it when I grow it inside this pot with this polybatria. So if you are struggling with the Peperomia prostrata yourself, I would recommend maybe growing it as ground cover rather than as the plant itself, like with another plant. So just an experiment I'm doing. I actually have another peperomia or 2 all the way up here. So this one that's kind of back here is a Peperomia INCANA, which is one of my favorite peperomias. It's very blue and felted, so I really enjoy that about it. And another one I have back there is Peperomia AXILLARIS is how I purchased it. I think it's just another form of Peperomia dolibriformis, which you will be seeing once again later in this video. But I have been really struggling with that form of dolibriformis. It has not been the easiest. I find it rots very easily. And I also have another Peperomia tetragona all the way up here. I have a few of these. I really enjoy growing it. It's a very easy grower, and you do not need to water it very often at all. I'm seeing right behind the camera here that I have this Peperomia caperata. I believe this is Caperata Emerald Ripple. And then down here, I have this Peperomia Frost, which is a rather new cultivar of Peperomia that I have seen pop up on the market. And I have found this one to be an excellent grower in lower light. So this one is, up against this wall here. It's, about maybe 6 feet from that west-facing window. I probably had this one for about 9 months now and has been growing very, very well for me. I don't have that many Peperomias in this window because it is a south-facing window, so it's some pretty harsh light. But I do see I have a Peperomia TETRAGONA, once again, which is one that can take quite a bit of light. And then I also have a few that I'm just kind of propagating. So I have another Peperomia PERESKIIFOLIA down here with a Peperomia RANA VERDE right next to it. And then up here I have a Peperomia caperata Raspberry Ripple, I believe this one is. So it's got some nice like pink coloration to it around the burgundy. And up here I actually have another, or rather my first Peperomia Hope that I'm sharing with you guys. So this is a really easy one that really would prefer a lot of light in my experience, and it can rot pretty easily under low light conditions. So this is one I find grows very well in a south-facing window. But over here in this other south-facing window, I have some Peperomias that are really good at taking some intense light. So this bright red one right here is Peperomia graveolens, which actually in Latin graveolens means odorous. So this one actually gets a flower that smells very bad, but I have not personally smelled it, so we are on a very good terms at the moment. And then kind of hiding behind it is a Peperomia COLUMELLA, which is a rather new one to me that I actually got from my friend Linda. And then there is this Peperomia dolibriformis right here, which is the form of Peperomia dolibriformis that I'm used to seeing compared to that Peperomia axillaris that I showed you earlier that I kind of struggle a bit more with. So this one has been much easier for me to grow, especially in bright light. Up just a little bit from that south-facing window, I have this Peperomia ARGYREIA, which they commonly refer to as the watermelon Peperomia. This one definitely likes to be in brighter light than some of my other Peperomias, but I found when it was in too bright light inside the south-facing window, I did find it got a little bit of brown scarring on the back of it, so I have left it here ever since then. And then up here I have another Peperomia, SCANDENS variegata, one of my most notable Peperomias, I will say. I really love the way it grows. The scandent growth is incredible. I love the way it looks here with my Hartley philodendron. And I just love the variegated patterns. And I actually have a few more Peperomias down here. So as of me filming this, I actually just hosted a plant swap at my work Urban Jungle last night, and here's a few of the plants that I got traded. And my friend Ash traded me this Peperomia caperata, which I've noticed has some wonderful pink blush to the leaves, so I really enjoy that. And then back here is a Peperomia clusiifolia red margin that I've had for quite some time. It has a lot of character. And then a Peperomia ALBOVITTATA RANA VERDE, another one that I've had for a little bit more time. I've kind of abused this one. I've noticed that from the way my one that I've grown from leaf cutting has grown in that window that it prefers a little bit more light than some of the other Peperomias, and I can tell from how these leaves have faded that I haven't given it enough light. So these new leaves are coming in quite nice. I have it in a brighter environment here, but I used to have it on top of my microwave in my living room, and it was not very happy there. So this seems to be doing a lot better over here. I think that's all the Peperomias I have in my kitchen and my living room. So now we're going to move over to the bathroom. I think I have a Peperomia or two in there, and then we'll move over to the bedroom. I do actually have a few Peperomias in the bathroom. So I have this beautiful large Peperomia ARGYREIA or watermelon Peperomia. I purchased this one large, so I didn't grow it out this big. But I love how big the leaves are. I've just fell in love with it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I have to have it. There's just some plants where you already have one and you find another one and you just have to have it. So, and then kind of off camera, I have this Peperomia RUGOSA, which is a kind of uncommon Peperomia, but it's still readily available enough. And then below that is probably one of the most common Peperomias, Peperomia obtusifolia variegata. And I actually find these to be not the easiest Peperomias. I find that the obtusifolia rots rather easily, so I have to be very careful with the amount that I water it. And then I do have one more pep up here, a Peperomia glabella. I showed you one earlier in my living room, but I have another one here growing in a special substrate that my boss at work makes and grows plants in green walls. So I'm kind of just experimenting with that, growing in a shot glass, and it's been doing really, really well. So that's all the peps in here. So let's move over to my bedroom, and I'm sure I have a lot of them in there, so. Okay, we're here in my bedroom, and as you can see, there are a lot of plants, and there are a lot of Peperomias in here. So Peperomias grow really, really well in here because, one, I'm supplementing a lot of light. I have this artificial light from my grow bar, and then I have some purple lights that are usually on down here, but they're turned off for your viewing pleasure. And I have a lot of humidity in here just from there being a lot of plants and this being a very small space and also receiving a good amount of light. So it's kind of just like the perfect storm, if you will, and my plants seem to absolutely thrive in here. So I will say the first one I'm noticing is this Peperomia Silver Bandit, which is an unidentified species of Peperomia, I believe, that has a wonderful silver band down the center and some lovely red stem. It kind of looks similar to Peperomia Rana Verde to me, but it grows in a more of a habit that OBTUSIFOLIA would grow, so I think that's rather interesting to me. And then over here is a Peperomia Hoffmanii, which I think could actually use a bit of water. But this is one I've noticed will just drop leaves from me looking at it. So it's always one I'm kind of wary about and paying a little bit more closer attention to. Back behind it is actually two I've just recently got this week, or the past week. This one is a Peperomia viridis variegata. I recently got that one from Steve's Leaves, as well as a Peperomia Fuzzy Mystery, which I've been wanting for quite some time and recently bit the bullet on. I actually get a lot of my more fun Peperomias from Steve's Leaves, so that is definitely a great resource if you are looking to collect some Peperomias. Let's see what else I have. Down here I have a Peperomia albovittata piccolo banda, kind of a mouthful, but this has not been like the most easygoing Peperomia in terms of its new growth. Its new growth has come in rather small. I see them come in very, very large. Usually when I purchased it, the leaves were quite a nice size, but it's grown in quite small for me, so I haven't quite figured this one out yet. And then in this glass cloche, I have a Peperomia turboensis, which is similar looking to the Peperomia ARGYREIA or the watermelon Peperomia, but I've known this one to do very well in terrarium, so I decided to go ahead and put it inside this glass cloche. And I do have a Peperomia Harmonies pumpkin down here, which was supposedly like a very sought after Peperomia. I kind of got it from like a mistake at work, but it literally just looks like a Peperomia rugosa at this point. It looks nothing like the orange that it used to have on the leaves that you can kind of see faintly on some of the old leaves, but the new leaves have come in, look pretty much dead on like rugosa to me now. So I will say, personally, or to you guys, I would say that if that is one that you have been kind of seeking after, I might check that one off your list because I don't think it's as viable as a houseplant. It kind of rubs me the way of the pink Congo philodendron, if you've heard about that. Not a Peperomia, but down here I have a Piper parmatum, which is actually in the same family as Peperomias, the Piperaceae family, but it is in a different genus, and pipers are actually more diverse than Peperomias. There are over 2,000 species of pipers, so I thought I would just point that one out to you guys. And then I'm seeing right next to that piper, I have this Peperomia trinervula, which is very similar to the Peperomia glabella I showed you guys earlier, but a little bit different, nothing really remarkable in terms of its foliage. And then behind that is a type of Peperomia obtusifolia, which is a green margin variety, or green edge, I think. I believe it's green edge, not green margin. And over here I have this Peperomia GRISEO argentea pink lady, which is like a new hot Peperomia, if you will. It's the one with the pink variegation to the leaves. So I've been really enjoying watching that one grow. Let's move a little bit over here. I know up top and kind of in the back, so it's going to be really hard to see from this angle, of course, but I have a rather large Peperomia cubensis, which has some nice large green leaves and a red stem. It's once again nothing really spectacular in terms of foliage, but it was a large hanging basket when I found it, and I can't turn down a large hanging basket of Peperomia because you do not come across that very often. And then I'm seeing behind this Hoya right here is a Peperomia trailing jade, which looks rather similar to the KIMNACHII and could very well be KIMNACHII, but because of their differences in appearance, I am referring to this one as the namesake as I bought it. And then behind that is a Peperomia dulstedii, which was a gift from my friends at the Potted Elephant, so I'm really enjoying that one. It looks very similar to Peperomia tetragona, but has some more qualities of the Peperomia quadrangularis, and I love quadrangularis and tetragona, so that is a Peperomia for Nicholas. I don't think there's any peps down here, but I see right here I have a few. So this is a Peperomia verticillata, and we're moving into this south-facing window that has a ponytail pomona monstera deliciosa kind of blocking some of that intense south light. They seem to like it, but these peps might burn a little bit if they were in too bright of light, so and I see we're getting a little bit blown out, but I'll bring you guys in close. So there's this Peperomia verticillata, which is a rather fuzzied stem Peperomia. And I also have Peperomia INCANA once again. This is one of my favorite Peperomias. I just love the way it grows. It is such a wonderful grower. And then another Peperomia GRISEO argentea pink lady. I think this one needs a drink. I don't think I pay close enough attention to this one. And then another Peperomia that's rather interesting. This one is called Peperomia Peppermill, I have seen it as a misnomer, or I believe, or a synonym, but I don't think it actually has a name. I think it's just an unidentified peperomia from Ecuador. And then, if I can move this Stromanthe, there's another Peperomia, ARGYREIA, or watermelon peperomia, right back here. It's a rather small one, but I don't find these very often at the shop, so I had to get it when I find them. Another Peperomia Polybacteria, and I see that there's a Peperomia rubella hiding behind it, which is a rather small-leafed peperomia that does really, really well in bright light. And then a Peperomia ferrirae, which is the string bean peperomia they call it. So this is a rather succulent peperomia as well. There's a Peperomia trinervus, Peperomia trinervus. They have so many similar names right here. This has been a really wonderful peperomia for me to grow. Very, very prolific and rather hard to find. So if you can get your hands on this, I usually only see this at like botanical gardens, but one of my growers had it for a hot sec, so I got my hands on it and I've been loving growing it. And then I also have my Peperomia Hope that I've had for a really long time up here. I bought it as a very small 2-inch pot, as you will most often see Peperomia Hope sold as, and this one has been growing like crazy since then. They're slow to start, but then once they get going, they grow like crazy. And then I see another Peperomia down here. I don't have the exact name of this. I think it's Peperomia serpens, but I am not too positive, so if you have any info, definitely correct me. But I've been referring to it as Peperomia serpens since I have gotten my hands on it. I think that's all of the Peperomias. I'm sure I missed one or two here and there, but for the most part, I think I hit all of them. I'm sure as soon as I finish this video, I'm gonna find another one. I'm gonna be like, damn. But yeah, I think that was all of my Peperomias. Alrighty, thank you guys so much for joining me today on this little Peperomia houseplant tour. If you guys enjoyed it, I would definitely love to do this again with my aroids and my Hoyas. I think it's a little bit more fun to kind of hone in on a specific topic when I'm doing these houseplant tours, rather than go over everything as a whole and kind of have to graze over everything because I have so many damn plants at this point. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at PhillyFoliage, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have a great time!